Saturday, July 6, 2019, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So today is Billy's birthday, 11th birthday. I want to talk a little bit about Billy, how we got Billy and when we got him, the fact that he's actually a credit crunch puppy. That's what we called him. And I also want to touch up on something a little more serious, of course, numismatics, or collecting coins. And numismatics doesn't just have to do with gold and silver coins. It has to do with any coins. It could be copper-nickel coins, any coins whatsoever. I'm not, I would say, I'm an amateur numismatist. It's a difficult word to say. And yeah, very amateur. I guess if I had to give myself a handicap like in golf, I would be probably 12 or 14. I wouldn't be like a scratch golfer in numismatics. I've been involved in it for quite a few years. I have a few collector's coins, not only silver and gold, but some of them also like copper nickel. I've got one coin here that I found the other day when I got change. For example, is a 10p coin, which isn't worth much, but it's like a proof, and I'd never seen it before. And it's got like an S on it, and it's got Stonehenge. Very unusual coin. And I found it, got it in my change. I've kept it. I looked at it on Google, and apparently the Royal Mint, or the Mint, they've come out with these kind of 10p coins in 2019, and there's one for every letter of the alphabet. So it's going to be very hard to get all of them, but that's also numismatics. It's not just gold and silver coins. Like I've got here a 1963 half dollar. It's got Benjamin Franklin and the Liberty Belt. The 64, of course, half dollar is 90% silver, and is the Kennedy half dollar. The reason I'm looking at this is because of Executive Order 6102 in 1933, when they confiscated gold, but they made an exemption for collectors. Mainly because the Secretary of the Treasury at the time, Wooden, he was a coin collector, and that's why they put it in there. So you have to thank him for that, and that's still part of the deal. And one thing I heard as well, that in the 60s, a lot of Americans, they were buying sovereigns, or maybe even not just people in the know, but sovereign was considered a collector's coin. I'm not sure if it still is. Of course, I recommend Lynette Zhang at ITM Trading for that. So that's one of the reasons I'm talking about this, even though I think they would not confiscate gold today, because nowadays, compared to 1933, very few people own gold, monetary gold, I would say. So I don't think it would work. As I've said before, I think they're already confiscating it by keeping people away from buying gold, by manipulating the price, by making it frustrating, by giving people the chance to own paper gold like ETF and futures. So I'm not sure that it would be something that would happen again, but you never know, right? And you don't even know with the collector's exemption that they could like change things. That's what governments do. I also saw here that the same thing happened in Australia. If you go on Wikipedia, Order 6102, it says similar laws in other countries. It says in Australia, Part 4 of the Banking Act of 1959 allows the Commonwealth government to seize private citizens' gold in return for paper money, where the Governor General, and I quote, is satisfied that it is expedient to do so for the protection of the currency or the public credit of the Commonwealth. On January 30th, 1976, this part's operation was suspended. So Yeah, even in Australia, they've done it before. In Europe, I'm not too sure in the Eurozone what the rules are. In the UK, gold coins have not been confiscated before that I know of, but there were capital controls, I think, up until 1979. From the 60s, I think, to 1979, you could only buy, I think, 6 sovereigns a year. 4 sovereigns are just about an ounce, so you could only buy about an ounce and a half of gold a year. But in 1979, that all ended. They also took off VAT on gold. I think that was in 1999. And the other thing about sovereigns in the UK, of course, is that they are capital gains exempt. A sovereign still legally £1, even though it's worth a lot more in Bank of England notes. So what about resources? How did I learn about collecting some coins? Well, I just did my homework. First thing I did was Google numismatists, and I found like a list of the Numismatic Association or of England or the UK, and I found that a lot of the coin dealers are part of this group, and I started reading into it. I went to coin expos and met a lot of the numismatists and dealers from all over the world. So you need to do your homework. Yeah, if you want to get involved, and it's something that it takes time, and you have to dedicate yourself to it. There are some books that I think are interesting. I'll first talk about some books here in the UK that I have. One of them is The Gold Sovereign by Michael Marsh from Cambridge Coins. So it's not a very big book. It goes through all the different sovereigns from George III to Elizabeth II. And it rates them like common, normal, scarce, rare, very rare. So it's a very interesting book. Very technical about numismatics. I have before, a couple of years ago or so, because I have sovereigns, and I was checking through this book and also another book, which I'll show you in a minute, and I found that I had a sovereign, Victoria sovereign from the 19th century, and it was a shield back. They call it shield back. It's these here, like that. Shield back. I found that it was worth 3 times the value of a normal bullion sovereign coin. So it's always interesting to look to see if you got a special coin. There's this book as well, The Sovereign, the World's Most Famous Coin, A History and Price Guide, introduction by Daniel Fearon, price guide compiled by Brian Reeds, and it's from Bonham's auction house. And here as well, it talks about the history of the sovereign. It talks about the history of the mints in Canada, Australia. Very interesting book. And there were sovereigns minted in Canada and Australia and South Africa. So those as well, if you find, for example, an M, that's for Melbourne. So it's very interesting. So I recommend these 2 books for people who are into sovereigns, not just buying the bullion, but also collecting. And even sometimes you might get a bullion coin that's actually worth quite a bit more. You never know. So these are the 2 books. What about for my US viewers? Well, there's a couple of websites that I think are good. The first one is pcgs.com, which is Professional Coin Grading System, I think it stands for. But it's got everything about coins, coin grading, how to submit pricing standards, coin prices, price guide. It's a great place to go if you want to look at numismatics and collect coins. There's also a book, The Original Red Book, a guidebook of United States coins by R.S. Yeoman, edited by Kenneth Bressett. This is a 2006 edition. I know it's an old one, but it still gives you an idea of relative prices of all the different coins. And it goes all the way back to, I'll show you here, colonial issues, post-colonial issues, contract issues, half cents. It's a great thing to have, and it's got all the different years, different prices. This one here is for the half eagles. So this, I'm sure you could get the latest one. So I highly recommend this, the official red book. So that's numismatics, collecting coins, and it could be not just gold and silver. It could be copper coins. It could be copper nickel. There are some coins that have been issued post 1964 or even before in other countries that they're worth something, not because of the gold and silver, but because of their rarity. But yeah, you need to do your homework. And I've got some numismatic coins, but I haven't, for example, in the last few years done too much collecting, but I've done it in the past. Let's go and recollect Billy's history. The first thing I would say is that Billy is our second Shih Tzu in our family. Of course, when I was growing up, we actually had a Shih Tzu in Brazil. So, but in my adult family, he's the second one. And we had a first Shih Tzu. He was called Billy as well. We called him Billy. And he, very nice dog as well. Different personality than Billy. Billy is a lot more, I would say, sweet. He likes cuddles. The other dog was very nice, but he wasn't into cuddles. Different personality. He died in, unfortunately, 2008. He was 13 and a half. He had a bad heart. Yeah, a few months later, my daughter and I kept nagging my wife, and we got another puppy. I looked up Kennel Club website, the British Kennel Club, and I found a breeder near to where we lived, and that's how we got a hold of the breeder. So I called the breeder and I said, "Have you got any Shih Tzu puppies left?" And he said, "Yes, we've got one." And he's got a name. And I said, "Oh, really? What's his name?" And he said, "Billy No Mates." It's an expression here in in England, you know, or in the UK. Someone who doesn't have any friends, he's a Billy No Mates. You know, if you go to the golf club and there's someone playing golf on their own, you say, "Oh, there's Billy No Mates." And I said, "Wow, really?" And I said, "Why is it Billy No Mates?" And he said, "Well, because he's the last one left. All his siblings have gone." And this was, yeah, I think this was what, September 2008. I think it was right after the Lehman collapse. Things were really bad. We had Northern Rock that went bust here in the UK. It was right at the height of the '08 crisis. And the breeder said, "I can't sell him. No one's interested. I'll let you have it for £250, which was a bargain, I have to say. Even though, of course, I would have paid more for Billy. So that's why my wife and I call Billy the Credit Crunch puppy. So yeah, today he's 11, 6th of July. That's his birthday. And in this channel, my wife jokes that Billy is the head of compliance for Maneco 64, and that in his CV, you will find that he was head of compliance at Lehman's, Bear Stearns, and lastly, he was a head of compliance at Deutsche Bank, mainly because she thinks he would probably do a better job than the bankers. That's just a joke we have between ourselves. Billy will get a treat today for his birthday. I bought him a special treat, so he'll have that later on. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and you can also follow me on Twitter, Steemit, and on DTube. I wish you all a great weekend. Take care. Bye.